What up guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to let you guys know why after so many years I kept the RSX and even decided to purchase a second one. If you guys are new to the channel, this is my 2004 ACURA RSX Type S. It has a K20, K24 swap. The RSX was the first car I've ever had. I remember when I was still in high school and my sister went to college, my parents decided to give her the family car, the family Camry. And that was the car that I was driving around all over the place with. And when I finally got into college, you know, I personally didn't have my own car. My dad decided to get me a car, and he actually asked me what I wanted. One of my good friends at the time, he had a 3.2 ACURA TL, and you know, back in the day that car was super hype, and he showed me that at the speedometer 40 miles per hour was really low on the gauge, and it looked like you could go faster. It looked like it had way more room to stretch its legs. So that's when I first had my mind set on buying an ACURA RSX. I told my dad, and he actually wanted to get me a brand new Civic. And at the time I wasn't feeling the Civic. I was in love with how the RSX looked. After many weeks of searching on Craigslist, Auto Trader for the RSX that I wanted, that was in my dad's budget, I finally found a 2002 Nighthawk Black RSX base automatic. And at this point, you know, I was just ready to get my hands on a car. I was able to convince my dad to let me buy this RSX. So we contacted the owner. We went up, it was my dad and 3 close buddies of mine. We went up to upstate New York. When we arrived that day, this was the second time we were checking out the car. And this time, the owner and his brother were there. I instantly fell in love with the car, even though it had previous damage from what the owner claimed to be a bicycle running into the right front fender. After looking over the car, I told my dad that this is the car that I wanted. And the owner asked for a cashier's check. Luckily we knew this beforehand. However, now the owner wanted to verify that this check was legitimate before handing over the keys to his car. So we left the RSX at the owner's house, and we took the owner's older brother's Accord to the local bank to verify that the check was legitimate. But when we got to the bank, the bank was closed. And now, feeling unsure of what the next step was, the owner told us to go get a money order. And being new to upstate New York, and this is when Google Maps, Apple Maps, you know, cell phones weren't that common, we were still using MapQuest, if any of you viewers out there know what that was. So we're in an area that we were not familiar with. The owner and his brother took us to the post office, and it seemed like the drive turned out to be over 30 minutes to get to the post office, and lo and behold, when we got to the post office was closed too. Now feeling extremely desperate, unsure of whether I'd get the car, my dad asked me if this is the car that I really want. And of course I said yes. And to my shock, to my friend's shock, my dad pulled out a a wad of cash. Surprisingly, he prepared a cashier's check, was ready to get a money order, and actually had cash on hand for the transaction. So now we're sitting in the parking lot of the post office. We tell the buyer that we have cash and we're ready to make the deal. The owner's brother counts the cash. Everything is there. And now we decide to go back to the owner's house to pick up the car. And this is when things get weird. As we're following the owner back to the owner's house, and again, like I mentioned before, this is at a time where there was no Google Maps or Apple Maps, and we were in a town that we were completely unfamiliar with. The owner's brother seemed like he was driving faster and faster and trying to escape us. There were many points where he would slow down and then floor the vehicle. You would see smoke coming out of his exhaust. And at times, he would cut into the oncoming traffic to cut the car in front of him as we were following him back to the house. Now, at this time, my friends and I are all everybody in the car, everybody in our car was getting upset. We were wondering what exactly he was doing. We couldn't help but think that they were trying to run away with the money. And silly us, we gave them the money in good faith. I remember chasing them down, following them to a heavily trafficked intersection for them just to slow down for the light to almost change red and then make a turn. I was driving super quick, trying to follow them, trying to keep up with them, to a point where my dad was starting to tell me, to be careful. And now imagine me driving super quick, chasing after a car that has taken our money. My dad's telling me to drive safer, and three of my friends are in the car. Long story short, we follow the owner and his brother back to the house. We get the keys to the car, and now at this point the owner's telling us, oh, you're not going to be able to get any plates for the car. How are you going to drive the car home? And after dealing with this whole situation, we didn't want to leave the car with the owner. We didn't trust the owner. We didn't want to leave the car with the owner. So my dad took off one of the plates from his car, slapped it on the RSX, and we drove 3.5 hours through tolls. There was police on the road. It was just a crazy experience to get this car. I finally had a car. Fast forward a few months, the modification bug hits. I pick up a AEM short ram, HKS high power exhaust, not knowing that these mods don't actually produce any power. At that time, there was a Fast and Furious craze, and everybody was trying to modify their cars. So, typical me, I'm also trying to modify my car, trying to be all Fast and Furious. To my disappointment, the ACURA RSX base automatic makes 165 horsepower to the crank, as per Wikipedia. As per Honda, the ACURA RSX base model, the base automatic, barely made 140 horsepower. A tremendous loss in power to the transmission, a tremendous loss in power compared to the crank. And that was with a Honda reflash. At this point, all my dreams going fast and furious were all shot down. And actually, the Honda community is saying that this was not a good car to start with. You cannot make any power from this car. I was disappointed. At the same time, I stopped modifying my car. I remained on the forums, and I did see other base automatic owners modifying their cars to 200, 300 horsepower, but I knew it required a lot of work and a lot of money. Fast forward a few years in graduate school, I met one of my closest friends. He had a G37 XS, and he also currently owns an Audi S4 and a Porsche Macan. He reignited my passion for cars. It's then that I decided to prove all the haters wrong, that a base automatic could actually make power. First, I started by contacting Joel from Driven SG in Singapore. Shout out to Joel. He hooked me up with a wiring harness that piggybacks a Honda ECU to my car. After I got the ECU, I redid the head. I put a K20A2 valve train in the A3 head. I bought a K20A2 ACURA RSX Type S bottom end. Had forged pistons, forged rods put in there, stock crank, full race turbo kit, GT 2871R, and I was finally making 335 horsepower, 280 foot-pounds of torque. At that point, I was super excited. I finished graduate school, came back home, and within a month, the car was stolen. If you haven't seen the footage, I'm going to show you a brief little clip right here. All my hard work, all the time that I put into this car, all that I did to prove the community wrong, that a base automatic RSX could make power, was taken from me. Now that the RSX has been taken, the first car that my dad got me, it feels like something is missing. So I purchased another RSX, which you guys have seen, which I'm currently building to again prove to the world that the RSX is a formidable car. I'm calling out student loan underscore F32. He's currently pushing 440 to the crank. He says with a bigger turbo, maybe 600. In order for a front wheel drive car to compete with that, you know, I have to push some big numbers. And to prove that it can put down huge numbers and destroy its competitors. That is why I've continued to stick with the RSX. It's a great platform. It's the introduction of the K20A2, the K20A, and hopefully you guys will stick around to see the finale of this car. We're gonna be starting a series in a few weeks, Road to 700. We're gonna make 700 horsepower, guys. If you guys wanna keep up with the channel, don't forget to hit subscribe, hit the notification, and we'll see you next time. Peace.